with our topic of deliverables, I am definitely not going to be diving into how do we get to a project or how do we assign people to a project, things like that. But I will be covering some things that obviously relate to deliverables and users and some defaults or templates or settings or some ideas for your team to have or some features that maybe you weren't aware of. So just wanting to make you aware of where we'll go with our conversation or topic. But primarily what we'll need, anything in Workamajig needs a project. I've gone ahead and created this project for us here. And one of the things that I like to point out is that very basic, we're going to go through an example of setting up a deliverable. A deliverable, also to explain it, is a way to upload a digital file or asset for your team to review, go through a round type of review process. And you can have as many rounds or as many steps within a round as you'd like, so that the artist or team can take the feedback from the group that they've invited to participate in that review and obviously make the changes they need to do so. So we're going to keep it simple. I'm not an artist. I don't have anything that I've created or to get modified right off on the fly. But just wanted to show you at least some things that you're welcome to use or what's available to you. Obviously, we won't be able to get too much into the details of access or rights today. So that's something that you can discuss further internally with your teams, with your admins, or even reach out to your account managers at Workamajig through the email support@workamajig.com. We find that attendees to these webinars don't feel like they maybe know who their account manager is, and that's one way to find out is to go through that email as it recognizes your team's account email, and obviously we'll direct you to the appropriate account manager on our end. Okay, so let's get started. What I've done here with this particular project is I've gone ahead and set up some basic things like having a schedule, nothing too fancy. I'm not going to talk about how I came up with this or anything. I've assigned myself to it just so that I wouldn't have to work too hard to kind of fix things, to show you things, but just to kind of point that out there. And then in regards to our files, I've already uploaded a file here. I'm going to go through the process of showing you how to upload a file, just in case you weren't aware, or how to get you here, or there's ways to maybe even do a file upload outside of this that still uses your deliverables. But what we're trying to do here is just get you to a point where you've already done the setup, you already know that you can store files, right? And in this case, I've already done that myself. And so when you have a file in your project, you're going to be able to send it out for review through deliverables. So I can go ahead and just check off the box next to it, and I'll have different options available for me. I can do things with the file outside of sending it out for review, and you'll see those buttons there. But I'm going to go ahead and just click on send for review. That's a quick, easy way to I'm an artist or I'm a creator, and I've gone ahead and followed whatever needs or requirements or specs that the project has asked for me to do. And I now want to send this out for review for my team to analyze feedback and to go through and get this digital creation in a better shape. So I'm going to go ahead and send it out for review. The system is going to ask me to create a new deliverable. This is the deliverable intake. And just so you know, we have the ability to enter just what's required, which is just a name. So we can do December webinar as the title. I can add description. That's just for use for my team if they're looking up different deliverables and want to differentiate between one versus the other, or want to provide maybe some additional instructions or ideas or communication. I can use that for that purpose. It is pretty open for you to write quite a bit in here. So the other thing that you'll see is that we have a task field, and that task field can be used to already nest this sort of feature into the schedule that I just showed you. Maybe there's a place where I, as a creative or designer, needed to start this feature off and then also assign it to let people know where we're at in the process or where I've moved it into, as well as maybe allowing people that are working on it to allocate time and know which tasks maybe they should be allocating time to as they're working on reviewing or working on that digital asset. So I'll put myself under layout. You feel free to pick your own. Now with Workamajig, as we worked on the feature, we allow the ability for you to have steps and to templatize steps so that these reviews go to certain people. Now, to make it simple, I have it set in my settings to just have an internal review as a setup, and most of you will probably have that. We will have clients that will take advantage of the system's ability to reach out to those that can have already been trained outside of your account, like your clients or maybe another third party, and set up what's called a second step or a client review. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But that's why you see these checkboxes here. And I'm just worried about having that preset of an internal review here to help me just run things along smoothly just internally. Now, that's a little different from these other fields that you'll see at the bottom. You can actually, and you may not, if you're following along and you're trying to mimic what I'm doing, or later on as you're watching the video, trying to do the same. You may not have these other fields turned on. So I want to talk about them. Those are features that we will show you where to turn them on. But you can categorize or select preset statuses for your deliverables. So in my case, I've set up these three. Maybe I am tracking this deliverable is here versus there versus done. You can have as many of these as you want, different selections and the different in whichever order you want them to be presented. But it's a way to help communicate to your team in tables or reports that we'll show you later where your review is, where the deliverable is, so you can better track it. Okay, so for me, it defaults to that status. Similarly, if you needed more in-depth reporting tools or categorical tools, you can set up types. So I've set these up, as part of, just previous, because this is my sandbox. So ways that I've tried to maybe show, clients how you could use types, but again, it's just another ways to filter or classify your deliverables. In this case, I've used these terminologies, so I could use, like a decal R type, or it could be anything. Again, you make it your own, and then you'll have a drop down where you can pick from that list that you customized yourself. The last set of fields here is going to be, well, again, for reporting purposes, who is the owner? Who can I kind of go to for that? There's not going to be any feature that defaults to say, okay, the owner is going to have this special ability or anything like that. It's just, who's in charge of the record. We have that ownership record in other records like, clients, for example. So you'll be able to kind of set that, and it's usually meant to just to, keep track of who's in charge of what from a reporting standpoint. You can set up due dates and maximum number of rounds, and that's also going to allow you to see, okay, I set myself as a goal to have a due date when this should be done by, and I passed that date, and now I'm seeing in the report where I'm at, so that I know that, we're behind, or this should have been done sooner. And those tables and reports can talk about that, as well as the number of rounds. We can reference these fields for that. I don't usually interact with these too much, so I won't. But at the very end, obviously, we have confirmation of when or what file we've obviously used from behind the scenes here. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And it's going to go ahead and create the deliverable for us. And as you can see from the options, or at least boxes, fields that we saw before, I have that internal review. These are my steps. And had I picked client review, then I would have had another step already preset for client review. But within this step, all of this falls in. Right? So we are in round one, so we know that. Sometimes my clients will ask, well, can I change the name of the round? And can I, depending on the round that I've chosen, can I reassign a different task for that? Again, you don't have to do that. Those are just options if you want to kind of classify the details within the round, within the step of what's going on. But you've already sort of done that already in the step before. We just allow for those extra tools if you need to. But the system is going to auto-enumerate rounds for you. So if you create a new round after this round is done, then it'll go round 2. Otherwise, that's one more thing for your team to feel like they have to do is rename rounds or reward them or however they want to do it. So the system is doing that for you. It's going to confirm the files here on the left. That's great. But really what's going on with the step is that we have instructions of how to send this out to people. Who are the people that are going to be reviewing this? And then those that just need to be notified, hey, these are the things that have happened since, or this is the final decision from the step and technically the round. And you may want to sometimes double dip having the same person in both or just in one versus the other. And I won't talk too much about it, just to let you know that may be due to a process decision. I know that I have clients that will want, maybe someone who is the project manager or account manager to be part of the notifications. Okay, great. Maybe they're also part of the approver list. Great. Maybe there's others that are involved in the creative work that maybe didn't create the art this time, but maybe they're wanting to be involved in the feedback of it. So they don't need to be notified when things are finished or changed or updated, but maybe they are interested in just providing that feedback. And so you want to make them be participants of your approval process. So in clicking my approval process, I am just picking myself. And then this is actually looking at the team of your project. Again, something that I didn't jump into and talk about. I assume that your teams already know, hey, when I add people to my schedule or when I add people to the projects team, that's where I'll see people here. My web attendee is technically my client, so they're not really a member of my employee list. But if I wanted to switch gears and find other people, maybe my staff, right, I would be able to pick other people here and select them, right? And so you'll start to see that I can pick those people here, and I guess I didn't select myself there. So there's a couple of things there. So those are going to be the people that you're involved. I have some fictitious emails here just to have the system, as I test or work in my sandbox to see that, you are sending notifications to these approvers as soon as you send this out for review. But how you organize those people in that review process is that you're going and editing the instructions in the internal review. So I'm going to go ahead and click here so you can see that. So again, this is now looking at the step name. So again, if I didn't want that system generated step name, you can make your own here, or you can overwrite it. You can provide instructions to that particular step, please provide, markup and feedback, and provide feedback. And then it's going to ask you, you have a list of approvers. How do you want to send it to them? If you send it to them in a certain order, should they all review, or whoever's, first to get to it, and then is it done, right? And then your step options, this particular step, when is it due? Is there a time deadline that you want to set on here? And again, it's going to be something that for those people that receive those notifications or are part of your approval list, you can set up using this reference reminders. So I just usually jump in. I'll come back to this middle options here, but based on the due date, the time, and obviously the time zone, we're in Arizona, you can say, oh, okay, do you want to set reminders at what interval, daily or hourly? And depending on which one, then number of hours or number of days before that reminder, right? To start the reminder based on the due date. So those are available to you to use. And again, the system is still going to email and or is going to appear on the list of the bell icon for them when they're logged into the system, so they can see, oh, I have these approvals that I have to do, and that includes these deliverable reviews set for me to do so. Now, these other ones here in the middle, those, again, I don't see as many people use them, but just so you know, if you had those multiple steps like that client review, the system is going to look at the people that are involved in the first step, and if they're done, then it's going to want to send it to the second step. And so this pause is allowing the system to not do that right away, to let a human being, right, see the notifications that, hey, this step is done and we're ready for the next step, and you can go ahead and trigger for that second step to start. So that's what the pause button is for. And then if you're sending this out to users, and you want to protect the security of the link that you sent, it's going to ask them to log in once they click on an email link. Obviously, if they're not already in the system, so that way, only it's for their eyes only, right? And so that's something that you can add to the security of these instructions. So that's what I have. Like I said, I'm going to keep myself simple and not have to worry about these two approvers. I'm going to go ahead and delete Don here. Just wanted to show you. But as you saw, as I'm clicking here, you can set individual deadlines for people if you wanted to. Obviously, they'll get notified based on that. As you can see, I'm able to edit who's on my list of approvers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and send this out for review. Pretty straightforward. And what's going to happen is obviously the system is going to update that I've sent it out. I can't edit the files anymore. I can see that I sent this out to myself, right? And then I will eventually see when it was completed and the status that it's happening now, that it's already sent out, it's being reviewed. So again, bell icon, I would have a link, email, I would have a link. If I'm in the project or somewhere in the system that I'm able to jump into this, I would see that. And so under view comments, this is my way of seeing what I've so far prepared, right? So here is the image that I've taken, that I've uploaded, that I want people to edit. If I'm going to kind of show you around, I usually like to start from the bottom. You can use these tools to rotate, to set up rulers, to measure, to zoom in or zoom out, to kind of stretch the image, to fit it, to make it, real size, or fit the screen, or go full screen if you want to let the browser actually take over the entire screen or your computer screen there, you'll have that. And so, those are some tools available to you. And then from the right side, you'll be able to see, okay, if other people are collaborating with you on the comments or the feedback, you'll be able to see those comments. Right away, you can see that it's inviting you to maybe do some markup already, or sort the comments by person, by time, etc., by date. So those are all going to be here available to you. And then, yeah, if you have multiple pages, then that would do by page. Otherwise, you can untoggle it to bring it back to the image. You can actually add comments from here without having to click on the view comments. We'll do that in a moment. We have the thumbs up button. We've changed that recently. If you didn't notice or weren't aware, it's now a thumbs up, and now you can see the instructions. So if I left any, which I don't think I did, and then obviously after you make all your comments, you would come in here to say, yeah, I want to, say that we're good to go, or what, I had comments and we need to kind of do some more work on this. So you're gonna have to resubmit it based on those comments, right? And obviously it's me and the only person in my comments. My decision would appear here. If I saw other people and their decisions, obviously I would see them here as well. This last one is going to just show me the files. If I had more than one file and this deliverable, because you can have more than one file, I would see them across the way here. And then when it comes to seeing them, to view them on screen, I would hover over at the top half of that file to view it. If I want to download it, then it's the bottom half. And then obviously I have it in my computer. That may happen if you are uploading a file that we just don't have a license to show, or it's not, a kind of a free file that's easily, accessible, like if it's not a PNG, maybe it's something specific or a special file format. You can still download it and then make your comments and attach those comments, obviously no markup. And so that at least the creator has that. But in those cases, we just usually say, hey, just convert your file into, a PDF, a JPEG, a PNG file, right? So that people can see, so that way, they at least have the ability to give feedback. And obviously we don't need the exact same, Photoshop image or any other image that you want to upload. So, but yeah, that's going to show those files there for you. Now, from this top side, you also have a shortcut to make a decision if you didn't want to go on the right side. So it'll be the same thing, nothing big there. But I want to talk about the more button. So when I'm an admin, so not everyone will have this, I just want you to know that you have the ability to do a couple of things here. You can invite others. It just sends them a link to view the image. You can print this out, and when you print it, it'll print it out with the comments. Again, save some paper, maybe not have to print it out, but it's there as an option. You can click on the dashboard and it'll take you to the dashboard of the project. So there's that. So nice shortcut instead of having to manually go back to different screens, it'll be there for you that way. Once we have multiple rounds, we'll come back to the edit latest round. And then we have this last one, which is system settings that I want to come back to as well. So I just wanted to let you know on that part. So let me leave some comments on here. So when I add comments, these are my tools that are available right now. We actually have more, and I'll show you that as part of the system settings options. But initially I can, point an arrow at something, or, enclose something here, or, obviously, if I'm doing multiple markups and I want to leave one comment, it's going to list them as letters. And then I can say, make changes 1, right? I'm able to email this message to someone specifically, but again, that's only if you really needed to point something out beyond what's already being pointed out with the feedback that you're letting the creator know, and obviously the notification tools that you have already preset for the actual round. If you felt like this wasn't enough or you wanted to attach things to it, you could. But remember that you don't want to grind too much into the details. We just make it available for those instances where you just need or want to have the ability to communicate further on the markup that you're doing. Otherwise, I can save it. And you're going to be able to see that this is, my first markup, and it has all these things on it. So I could do another markup, and then obviously I can focus on other things. So maybe I'm going to enclose something else and point at something here, and, mentioned, make changes to, and then go ahead and save, right? So you can see that there. So I can show all the markup, and it'll tell me here are all the ones, here are all the twos, or hide all the markup. And just as I go from one to the other, it'll kind of carry through that. PDF files will have a similar setup. I think with PDF files, it'll actually detect text. So it'll be another tool besides enclosing or pointing an arrow to it. So you can highlight that text and make changes to it. We actually allow you to upload a video to it, but we actually, and I'll show you in a moment when we redo a second round here. There's other better ways to do with video, but you'll have that. And then we have websites, pages that you can also link to, and I'll talk about that briefly once we get into the next stage of it. But just wanted to show you that that's how the markup works, pretty straightforward. And then, like I said, at the end of it all, we would make decisions. Now, during that time that I was making that markup, let me hide it all here and set it back. Under the More button, as I mentioned, we have system settings. So again, this is where your admin comes in. So not everybody should have the rights to kind of change this. So you'll see things like, oh, okay, always load the item in actual size, or require things with comments, in this case, annotations. We actually, besides the approve or resubmit, we could involve an additional decision, which is kind of like the in the middle, approve, but I still need changes. Some of my clients, don't really use, most of my clients don't really use that third option, but you're welcome to have that. And it just would be one more thing. So I'll turn it on so you can see it. I'll turn on your advanced tool so you can see that. And then I'll come back and talk about this in a moment, but let me go ahead and just turn those two on. Whenever you do, just if you are an admin, whenever you make a change, just know that sometimes you'll be faced with clicking between the green and the red. There may be some personal settings that some screens may offer. And so you have to be careful if you want to make or know your team and change their personal settings, you would click the red and reset all. And that's usually when you're first starting out with Workamajig, or first starting out with a feature, kind of want to have a clean slate for everyone. So you would reset all settings. But usually click on the green, that's safe. You're still making the changes you're looking for, but you're not modifying someone's personal settings on the specific screens. In this case, I don't think there are any here to worry about within the deliverable settings screens. So just an FYI. So now that I've done that, I just need to refresh my page because I've done a change to it. But what you will see here now is if I want to create a comment, now I'm showing the advanced tools. So here are all the other tools. So, having a sort of a shaded colored highlight instead of just an enclosure, same with circles instead of rectangles or squares. And this one, I think it's doing a free drawing line, right? That you want to point out. I think this is just to mark pointers on here. Trying to think, what is this here? I don't use too many of these myself, so I think it has to do with rulers or if I unhover it, it'll tell me, yeah, show color info at a point. So, you know, it gives me a reading there for that. Actually, I think this is the ruler, but you get the idea that I'm working on different tools that are available to you. As you can see there, it picked up the color, set of rulers, etc. They're available to you. Here's the big idea of it all, right? Is that your team may say, we want simple tools, so let me turn that off, or we are going to take advantage of these tools. So before you turn that on for your team, kind of talk to them about it and see if they're interested in pursuing those tools. If there's any feedback on the tools or anything else, obviously reach out to us via that email support site that I mentioned. But those are things that are available when you turn on those advanced tools, okay? So I'll leave that open there and you can see all the stuff that I've added on. And then the other thing that I've turned on with the extra settings is now you have that approve with changes. So that's that option. Again, does it really help you? Do you really need it? Something in the middle when you're asking your team to make decisions? That option is now available because I've turned that on. So you have that. So again, I'm just looking at questions. Nicole is asking, you know, is this additional? So everything's included. Everything that I'm showing you is included. To be honest with you, have not seen us charge for anything that we've ever shown in webinars or instructions or included in the system. So yeah, this is all included, all ready to go in your system. Just you may have not known about it. And that's why we have these webinars to kind of give you that heads up. That's what's available to you. So good question, definitely. Okay, so we have all that, right? Great, so I can make my decision, and I'm going to be very blunt that I didn't like what I have in here, and I want things to be changed and resubmitted. So I would click on that, and then it's gone, right? Then it's done. Basically, it goes on to whoever's next. If there's a process to follow after me, or if I'm the only one, then what's going to happen here is that back on here, it's going to tell me, okay, that was the decision. So the overall decision for all approvers is this, and the overall decision of the step is all this. And in fact, if I go back to my project, I have my deliverable here as a dashboard. Some of you may have it on the left, and that's just a setting under the More button. Again, not to get too into the weeds of it, but you can decide where you want your deliverables menu to appear, on the right or on the left. If you uncheck the right, then it's on the left side, just so you know. But the idea is that if it's on the right, you get sort of this dashboard view of it. It gives you obviously information, the title with a round, what's the status on it, right, in regards to approvals. And then obviously I would be able to see more or kind of create one from here as well. So being able to just jump into that, and I just need to refresh, I think, my screen. So let me go back to my update, go back to my project, go back to my deliverable. Oh, I don't know if I broke my screen here. So let me work on that here. So somebody asked us, I'm looking to fix myself here. 3 people are making comments. So at the end of all the comments, right, the step is done, the round is done, the notify icon or the notify tool that you set up along with the approvers, it would come back to that creative or designer, right? They've set themselves up as to be notified so that they know. Obviously, we're going to show you other tools to keep track of your deliverables. But that way, each person that's leaving comments is leaving the comments of just obviously their own stuff. But at the end, when everyone's done, you get to obviously see what they said. So good question on that. So let me see if I'm okay now, or if it's going to yell at me. There we go. Not sure why I was having trouble, but there we go. Anyway, so this is what it looks like with deliverables once you click into it from the project side. Again, lots of things to talk about here, but I just wanted to let you know that it is going to default to the last thing you kind of saw. So for me, it's always been visiting the review rounds. We'll talk about the other ones in a moment briefly, just to not have enough time for it all. But now that I know that my first round is done, then I can go ahead and do a new round. When I do a new round, the system's going to say, well, happy to set you up with what you had before, like the reviewers, notifiers, descriptions, timelines, etc. It's just whether I want to include the same files, right? Maybe I am going to, hopefully I am going to upload a new file, and then not the same one, right? Because I made changes, but I want everything to be the same, or I want to start from scratch and manually add people, add instructions, add steps, whatever else that I want. So I'll do the same as last round, but I won't include the file. So I'll click that, and then I'll have this new step. As you can see, it already gave it the round 2, so I didn't have to come up with that. Those same instructions for people now are selected. I didn't have to go find myself. And then, but there's no file. So instead of having to have had a file here in the project, maybe I realize that I don't have it, or I do have it, but I just need to reference it. And under the file section here, this is where I can upload a brand new file, not in the system whatsoever, at least not in the project, or select one that's in the project file system. Or as I mentioned, you have the ability to add a URL if you're linking a website page, just so that you can see when I click on it, it's going to give you instructions of what to place in this text in your HTML file of each of the pages on your site, so that we can present them. I don't have a site ready or prepared for you to see, but just so that you know that it is going to allow you to then link that and allow you to visit that site and let your team mark up that site accordingly. And then for the video, yes, you could upload a file, but I mentioned that there's a better way. So if you have a Vimeo account or a YouTube account, you can actually upload a link, and then that video will be there, and then you can annotate frame by frame with the tools that we've talked about. So there you go. Now, in this case, I'm going to upload a new file because I only had one. I'm going to go ahead, and I believe it's this one. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. So I selected a file from my computer. It's now here. I guess we'll find out what it actually is. But I'm going to go ahead and send it out for review once more. So again, back to me, back to viewing comments. Everything's being updated real time. And then when I go view comments now, this one's a little different. This one has apples, right? The other one did not have any. And so again, I can go back and continue to make comments. Now, if I'm part of that second round of review and I want to go and revisit that first one, well, I don't want to go back to the first round. Isn't there an easier way? So that's where I can go back to the More button up here, and I can select to go back to a different round. So it's going to tell me, okay, there's round 1. And now this is the image from round 1. Perfect, great. I can see the comments. I can see the markup. That's great. Thank you. Now I can go back to it, but that's still kind of annoying. I wish there was a better way to do it. So under the More button, we have a compare tool, and then I just have to pick my deliverable. I only have one, and I have my round from before, and now I have a before and after right next to each other with the same tools. What were the comments? Obviously, the decisions that were made are there. And then obviously I'm making my own comments and going forward with that, right? So now I have a comparison. Okay, what did my designer do? What were the changes? Do I like them? Is there anything else? Did I miss something in the first one that I should talk about in the second one, etc., right? So feel free to use those tools. Those are great. Available to you on that now that it knows. You can hide the compare button as well. Obviously, editing latest round is to be able to come back to it, and if you're in control or have the ability to add people, for example, to the review process, make changes to that, you can. So just quick shortcuts to those screens. So that's the idea with that. I'll go ahead and hide the compare for now. And what I'll do is I'll go back to the system settings, because there's one more thing that I didn't check on before, and that's the show assign a follow-up task link. So what this really is turning this on, is that I'm now going to show that when I'm over, and again, I have to come back and out of this, that when I'm on my list of decisions, there's going to be a link that wasn't here before. And so as I'm working on this as feedback, or as someone who is maybe the last person on the approval list, maybe I want to, and I have the ability to work the schedules, I'll have the ability to assign a follow-up task for the work that I've put forward with all the feedback or comments. And so that's what that is. Now, you'll notice that it still remembers what task this deliverable is linked to. So I can just continue to use that, or if I don't, I can add a new task or change to a different task on the list. And then obviously it's going to tell me who's assigned to that task currently and all of that assignment detail, so that I can obviously confirm it, update it, or add more people to it. And then obviously send notifications to those people that I've assigned to say, hey, I'm asking you now to follow up on this and move forward with it. So I'll go ahead and just click save, and we'll have that. And then it'll tell me, oh yeah, you do have a follow-up task layout and so forth. So all it is just letting people know that they're having something to work if they didn't know that already from that perspective with that setting. So question here. Yeah, you can have everyone that is part of the approval process. So the question is, can reviewers make comments and make decisions? Yes. So everyone that is included in the approval list can leave feedback, and we'd love, at least for the process here, for them to make a decision, just because it is going to count everyone's decisions towards that goal. Obviously, everyone approves and it's good. If someone doesn't, then the whole thing needs to be resubmitted. So yes, definitely have as many people involved to both do feedback and comments and decisions. So good question there. It's just me, so I'm only showing you myself, right? Kind of limited on that. So I would definitely resubmit. So there's that for that second one. Maybe still needs some work. So yeah, as I'm doing that, right? Again, we're at the resubmit. Now I have round 2 that has that status, etc. But one of the cool things about this is that, as I mentioned, within the system, you're going to have these other details here available to you. And so you can link and create conversations that will have that link to the deliverable. Again, for tracking purposes within the screen here, hey, I know that a project can have conversations. Well, now you can even go further into the rabbit hole, I guess, here with the deliverables, and you can create a conversation that's linked to it as well. Again, can't talk too much about conversations today, but it's a way to communicate, right, with your team. To-dos would be something else that's similar to that. If you're using to-dos for tasks, well, now you can link to-dos as well to deliverables, and they'll show up in the way that you track to-dos now. If you don't know anything about to-dos, we've had webinars that you can revisit on that. We'll have webinars in the future to talk about that, and we can offer you further information via our support email, and asking for training from your account managers on that. But just letting you know that we allow to-dos to be linked to deliverables here. So they'll have all of that. Now, the idea with all this is that, again, I have this project that has that schedule, that has those deliverables, right? And so far I've had linked to that layout task, and I'm assigned to that task, which is great. So if I go to my list of my tasks as a creative, which again, just in case, so you know where to go, if you don't know how to get there, in the main menu, this is my menu. Your menu may look different due to access rights and things, but creatives have access to view their task list under the Today creatives, and then they'll see their list of tasks in whatever format. And again, can't talk too much about it. I'm going to go ahead and filter for everything that I have here, just for that project. And so if I go look at my list of assignments or projects, I'll have this one, right? This one's the layout one. I can see because it has the detail here. And I can see that I have the deliverable open. So I can go ahead and click on it, and it'll give me that information, including that deliverable. And I can see that. So I can see where it's at. I can enter time against it. That's another feature. So again, you need a task, and all this is doing is just saying, hey, I just want a shortcut to, what project, what task, what's the service. Again, can't talk too much about time entries in this call, but it's just giving you the shortcuts to do that within here. Maybe there are others deliverables that maybe are linked somehow to other tasks, you would see that obviously different. Within the actual screen here, you jump right into the deliverable to see where it's at as well. So it's a shortcut to it. So your creatives don't really have to leave too far from their task list to see what's going on in their world, especially when it comes to deliverables. But one of the cool things too that we have is that you can select to reassign this deliverable to a different task. Maybe you're working it and you're kind of, the schedule is set up for you to kind of follow it along as a designer, and you're like, well, I was in the layout stage, now I'm at the design stage. And so by clicking on that design stage, it takes it away from that layout task. And luckily, I'm also assigned to the design tool here, task here. And so now it appears under design. So those are cool tools that we were now adding on to see that. And then we have this little arrow if you want just to push it to the next task. So that way you don't have to figure out what's the next task, because maybe, it's being worked across multiple tasks, and that's a cool way to do that. Again, not that you have to do that, but just we allow that option to be there as part of a collaborative process. So very cool things to share and show you here on that. So now that we've done that, I want to go back to the deliverable itself and talk about the details of it. So as I mentioned, and this is a good way to kind of edit at least some of the detail that I've entered initially, the task, the status, those would be there. So what we're doing with those is that in the back end of the system, we have some tools that can help you make the deliverable process easier, make those who are assigned to be approvers or be notified easier. And then obviously, using some of the reporting capabilities that are available. So let me see if I have a question here. Can creatives add a new deliverable from their task? Good question. I don't know if we have that by feature, because I think it has to be done within the project, just from here. But what they can do, so it's not really within the task itself. Maybe I guess I should be thinking about the answer that way. But once they're within the project itself, so that this clicking on the card opens up the details, right? But if they want to enhance the project by adding the deliverable, like I've shown you at the very beginning, they can click on the project link itself, and then they'll get here, and then they can click on the deliverable. So that's the way that I would do it, because again, they gotta more than likely want to share files, right? Hey, here's the things that I'm creating to then reference when I create my deliverables. So they may want to go through that route. I know that if they do click on the folder icon here, they can visit different areas. So deliverables here. And this is now another part, and this may be another way to do it, but this is a deliverables table or dashboard. And what this is available for you to see the and track deliverables in different ways. So as you can see, this is technically my client. If there was a campaign that I want to filter for and see deliverables underneath that, but if I want to be more specific and look under a project, and so this is the only deliverable under that project, but I could obviously go back and show more if I had more. I don't really think I have more anyways, but I can see, where I am in regards to the groupings, obviously the categories, the tracking that I told you, due dates, rounds, project numbers, project names. So all of that would be there. And then obviously the ability to add a new deliverable from here it would be another option. There's different ways, just like we've shown other screens, not today, but that's available to you. You can set up different columns, tables for your team based on layouts that you set up, or you can group by, like I said, status is the group that I'm on. If you remember, I had that status initially, internal review, or I could see by different categories to group under. We also show a card view that would allow you to move between those different statuses and or tasks. That way you can see them sort of in a cool card view for your track. And I believe depending on how you use those dates, they would even show up here as the due date. I don't know if I used that in my deliverable, so I don't have anything to show in this field, but if you did, it would show from a calendar view where it is. So yeah, definitely more than one way to kind of cut and slice to add a deliverable as a creative write-off from the task list. But I would say, more than likely you're doing it from the project dashboard, like I've shown you. So yeah, and so there's a question that was just asked, can we view deliverables globally? So having this table that I'm showing you would be one way. Now, obviously, I've kind of filtered it by that client only, which is just the one. I'm sure I have some random gibberish in here if I had it otherwise. Let's see if it'll populate. Maybe I need to change it because I think I need to, let's see here. Now I do need to click for this particular situation, I do need a client. So I just wanted to confirm that here. But you can. So besides the reporting dashboard, which is here, which again you found by going from the card view, if it has a deliverable, right, by clicking on deliverables, you actually from the main menu under project manager, you'll have that same table access. So that's the dashboard for deliverables. Again, you do have to pick a client. But then if you want to see lists of deliverables globally, we do have the ability for you to click on and view them under the magnifying glass icon, under views, and going over to the deliverables project management. This is pretty much getting into the idea of custom reporting, or at least in this case, custom listing of records, in this case, deliverables. And if I were to just, again, I'm probably going to show you everything in some random order, but I can see, by client or by project and see where they're at. And you can make this your own list and add more columns, or use the filtering tools to filter for just one particular, client. So I go back to my webinar client here, or this is the ID, not the name. So obviously I'm cleaning it up. Oh, I do have something else going on. Yeah, so that's the idea, is that we'll have these out there as a tool for you to use to track deliverables as well. So yeah, somebody was just asking about our topic today. Yes, unfortunately, there was an error in the topic for the webinar. I would say if you want to follow up with your account manager, I don't know the schedule off the top of my head of when they will be available, or when they will be hosting the reporting webinar, but I would have you either reach out to support@workamajig.com, or maybe I think we emailed everyone based on the webinar that you've signed up for, and just reply there on what the schedule is. I think we even have a listing on our help guide, but I'm not sure. That's a good question on that. So yeah, so let me clear out these questions so that I know we've answered them. Okay, so the other thing that I was going to just mention here is that if you go over to the back end of the system, so I'm going to show you that here. Again, different people will have different access. I'm an admin in my own sandbox, so just note that. But under the system setup, we have a couple of things to talk about here. The first thing is under transaction preferences. If you didn't see the ability to use deliverables the way that I shown you, is probably because you have to revisit that here. First thing when it comes to this area, again, very sensitive area. So you just know that if you don't feel sure about it, even after the call, to reach out to us for help. But this is where you templatize those instructions depending on the step that you chose. Who it's going to go to, in which order, whether things are required, reminders, etc. And then at the very bottom, you'll have options. Let me real quick visit the bottom one. So if you want both steps to be included, or one versus the other, you would select it. That's why I have that internal review only. That's why I only did that one step for me. Now, in the middle here, this is where you can set up a lot. Now, the ones that I haven't checked are mostly to either require something that I didn't need or to just send out notifications or do a few things for the deliverables that we obviously are stated on those options. The ones that I want to talk about are actually the ones that are checked on. So again, can't talk about to-dos in detail today, but if you wanted to link to-dos with deliverables, check that on. If you want to use statuses like I've shown you, check that on. If you want to use types, check that on. And having those on is going to allow you to then go back to your system setup here under global lists. And these two will definitely show up. Obviously, to-dos will be already as a feature, but this is where you can define statuses. So it's just pretty straightforward. You can have as many rows as you want, and then have them listed in whichever order you want to see them. One will always be set as a default. You can set up colors, and those colors will appear in the in that dashboard for deliverables that I showed you that you had to pick the client for. So that's going to help, kind of track things down for you, or maybe you want to use these in your listing screens, your reporting screens. You can reference that table there. So there's that. And then with types, it's the second one. And same thing, you saw that I have those. What's really nice about these though, is that if you wanted to templatize a process of approval beyond what I showed you a moment ago in transaction preferences, deliverable types will allow you to do that. You can see that in each of these, I have a link to edit the approval process. And so I can pre-select people and their steps to do so, so that I can obviously move forward with it. So just as an FYI on that, and obviously this would be it. Now, this is just sort of a tool to kind of select right from the team, or maybe you will have the client or an outside party participate in the steps, so you have your contacts. What I just wanted to kind of plant a seed on for you to maybe explore further with your account manager or ask questions, via the email support link, is that you can also have key people. Key people is a tool that allows you to select who in your project is who in this list, and you can make your own list. And then the system will pick up and kind of connect the dots. Hey, this person's in this project and they're using this deliverable type. And based on these steps, I can pre-select who who it's going to be part of that approval process, because, Mark and is the primary, the billing manager versus, Sandra, that's the project manager versus, Sally, that's the copywriter, right? So again, just nesting that, probably giving you a little more into that ability to kind of not feel forced to always have to think about, oh, I'm limited to having to create a type for every kind of situation because I'll have different people every time. Key people can save you that time or that struggle. And we'll have that in our website support site. Like I said, you can reach out to our team to ask more about key people, but it is a way to link your users and the projects that they're in to these approval processes without having to go find them every time. So that's a nice, cool thing about types, being able to set up approvals that way. There's also custom fields. So custom fields, if you don't know, you can add fields in Workamajig to different records. Well, we allow custom fields to exist within deliverables. Maybe you want to allow some kind of communication, some presets for people to be aware of. Again, I don't see that used a lot, but that's why it's showing here, because you can add a custom field, and then in the deliverable process, if that's the type of deliverable, you'll see that field and somebody can type in the text box, whatever they want, right? Whatever is appropriate for that deliverable. And or maybe you can make it a drop down or radial button selections or a text box for them to use that for another option for communication. So just so you know on those, what that means. And then last of all, as I mentioned, being able to use to-dos within deliverables, just revisiting that option here, is that we have that on. So again, if you're not using the to-dos and you want to kind of learn on your own, obviously we would recommend that you kind of let us help you. But just to note, you need that box on, but also within projects, you need to be able to use to-dos. You'll have that. I think it's, let me see, where's the option here? Oh, here we go. Use to do items. So that also needs to be on. You can't just go to deliverables and ask it to use to do. So if you don't use that. So just an FYI on that. Oh, and even here, this is the labels for key people, just so you know. But again, can't get too much into it. Just an FYI where maybe that page is if you're kind of looking in our help guide for that. But once you have those on, then obviously if I go back and I'm gonna go to my tools here at the top to visit my project and visit my my deliverables. What you can do is, and maybe I'll create a new round for this, or just note that there are to-dos that we'll eventually see here. But within a round, while you're doing your new round, and maybe I'll just use the same file just to save time. And I'll send it for review again, and then view comments. Whenever I make a comment here, so I'll just, circle something or enclose something, change this and save. Having to-dos on is going to allow your comment to have a link called fix this. And so fix this allows me to say, okay, this is the task. I'm using a to-do, and I want to add a to-do to that task. And obviously this is the person that's involved in that task. So I'm literally letting them know that I'm asking them to have a to-do here. And so this will be 2.2 design. So I'll click save, and it'll tell you it's in progress. And it'll just take you to the to-do itself within the project task, and you'll see it here. But just so you know what it's really doing is that back in the schedule, well, let's start here. Back in the deliverable screen, you already see the to-do. And then, like I said, with deliverables having types and things, well, to-dos can also have types or statuses. And again, in that webinar or in that help guide or in that training that you get from our team, you'll be able to see those or learn more about those. But what I'm trying to get at here is that that transcends all the way from the comment and the deliverable into the schedule, where in this case, my design task, if I look at the details, which I can by expanding my task detail box here on the top right, is going to show me my to-dos. To-dos are listed with the 3 check dots rows here to make changes and do that. And what is a to-do basically? A to-do is just adding additional instructions for that task and for that user or whoever is linked to that task, they want to grab it, so that in their view on their creatives today page, when they and I got a filter for just my project and it's, I think, what was it, design? I think it was this one. You'll see that there's a one open deliverable, one open to do, and then they'll see to-dos here and they'll know, okay, I can't just mark this task complete. Somebody asked me to make changes that mean something. Obviously, these are the comments or detail that they left me. And in this case, I have a link going back to the markup of the deliverable so that I know I need to change whatever I told them to change, right? So that's where that connection is now available. If you have used deliverables in the past, we didn't have that on before, or that didn't have that feature on before, but now you can really work your schedule, your fixes from this point of view. If you're, and that's depends on your style, right? You may have a style where you wait until the feedback is done to send it back to the designer. Maybe it's more than one designer and you want to kind of split up the work and you're managing them from here. That's where you can, whether it's by going to the decisions to just set up follow-up tasks if there wasn't a task that was already selected, or going all the way to a to-do, which is now going to appear here to say, hey, we've asked someone to do something and we've done it. This not a sign, it's just a status or a type, but it obviously is linked to that project and task. And once, it's meant to be grabbed by that person that's working the task, obviously it's available. You saw it's visible in their task list. And status is just a to-do option, just like deliverables has two statuses to change it to, in progress or whatever it is, right? And to communicate and leave comments, what's the latest on this, right? Just kind of a conversation. So it's a mixture of that, and there's history that you can track, and all of that detail is there. So just note that obviously the to-dos will be here. If you're using conversations, it'll be there. Rounds will be here. So lots of detail. But again, it was meant to kind of start you off in your path of using deliverables more if you weren't using it before, to show your team, hey, there's some cool stuff that Workamajig is doing here. To also maybe be the first step to getting you some training from your account manager and your team to have a list of questions for us to take advantage of. So that's our webinar on deliverables. Again, apologies for those that were expecting a different webinar today. There was a mix-up, but if you want to follow up with that email that you got with the invitation, or reach out to your account manager for further follow-up on that, please let us know. And thank you for your time again, for being so close to the holidays, and happy holidays to everybody. Be safe, and talk to you guys later. Thank you.